Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday night Eventide patrons only stream. How is everyone doing here this fine Tuesday afternoon? I want to start off by talking a little bit about the past 2 weeks, and then we're going to jump into tonight's topic right away because it's a juicy one and we got a lot of things to talk about. Sorry I didn't get a chance to stream last week. I was feeling a bit under the weather, and I was being productive on doing a dissection of the GM's guide, going through the content that I have, the content that I'm missing, the content that I still need to create. One of the things that I've realized is kind of one of the more productive things I can do right now, because I haven't had a lot of long block times to do expansive content pieces. One of the things that's been most useful for me is just keeping all the material fresh in my head, doing some analysis about what changes I'm going to need to make to account for the remaster, and frankly kind of getting a roadmap of all the pieces I still need to get the player's guide, the Gazetteer, and the adventure out and done. So there's one part of all of this that frankly I haven't touched all that much. I know it exists, I know kind of the general scope of what needs to be in it, but it's frankly been languishing as I've been focused mostly on player-focused player material, because I'm running playtests and my players need it, and the adventures, because that's what I'm running. So the third piece of this, of course, is the GM content. Now, the GM content is something that I haven't had to develop over much because I know it, or can invent it, and I'm also running an adventure that has set constraints, so I know what I need and what I don't need. But that said, that means that although conveniently that content can sit, that content can move, it does mean that it hasn't gotten much development. All of the pieces that I have, right, the player's guide is nearly completely written. The adventure is over halfway done at this point. And I just, the GM's guide is like, I've got a lot of text, but some of it's pretty old and dated and hasn't been updated in a year or two at this point. And some of it is now been superseded by developments and changes elsewhere. So I kind of spent some time just going through it, looking at what I had, what I didn't have. The things that are most kind of cromulent, most useful are the GM's material for Wormbone and the Icescar Valley, because I had a bunch of that. It was developed in parallel with the player content, so that material exists. But beyond that, it gets pretty light, pretty thin. I've got, write-ups of organizations and stuff like that, things that the players wouldn't automatically know, but the GM needs to know about. That way they can incorporate it into their stories. But that led me down the road of realizing that the one thing that I've been really light on, I'm not even sure why, other than the fact that I always kind of just waved it off as like, yeah, it's a thing I know I need to do, is monsters. One thing that I think can really help define a setting, define a place, isn't just the people you see and the places you can go and the sites to visit. It's the monsters you face along the way, right? I mean, it's it's not the destination, it's the monsters you fight on the way, right? That's because, they give you the XP. So, like all the truths. Yeah, no, a lot of the truths are not all going in there. I do have a list of them. I know what they're, but you're not going to get them. Not yet. Not yet. Yeah. So that brings me around to kind of, last week I was kind of in a groove of going through that document, and I didn't want to break or stop. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to stream. I wasn't feeling too particularly well anyway, and sitting and reading was kind of more my speed. So I just did that. Yeah, no, I certainly can't blame anyone for trying. For asking about the truth. Yeah, that's kind of what I did, and obviously there's still a ton of material I need to do for Wormbone, right? Some of you may have participated in a recent brainstorm, it was a little while back, about other businesses and things that I need in Wormbone, right? That was very productive, very fruitful. I thought we Made some good progress there. So tonight, what I thought I'd do is a different playtest, or a different playtest, brainstorm. And I'd chat with all of you about monsters, and maybe come up with some new ones to populate into the setting. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Had a little bit go down the wrong pipe. Okay, I'm better. I'm fine. Fine now. All right. So, monsters. I think for this, the best thing to do is to kind of discuss kind of what has already been set down, and then kind of look at it from the angle of what do I need. And all in all, I'd like to divide monsters. The monsters can be divided up into two broad categories. One is just kind of, this is a generic monster that makes sense for this setting, you know, but it could go anywhere, right? Oh, it's a new type of dragon that, you know, is made of lava, right? Whatever. You know, could be anywhere. And then the other type are, these are specifically tied to the setting. Putting these in a different setting means that you have to change that setting for these to make sense. Or change the monster to have it. So, monsters either, you know, are going to be kind of more generic, but still thematically appropriate, or be super setting specific. And frankly, I want kind of both, right? I think I should be presenting some monsters that are just cool and interesting, and you can pick them up and put them elsewhere, and that's fine. And then at the same time, I do want to set up a bunch of setting-specific monsters that really speak to the themes and the stuff happening in the setting. So let me start by just saying what monsters get a mention in some of the books. Because one of the things I did when I was going through stuff last week is I noted every time I mentioned a monster that wasn't perhaps just a standard. Like, oh, there are bears in the woods. Yeah, I didn't write down bears. So I'm going to go through that list first. I'll talk a little bit about each one, just to kind of set the stage as to where we're at. So, for those of you who don't remember, let me see. I got the map. Where is it? Here it is. So this is the Icescar Valley, right? So you got Wormbone. You've got you know, the Gemwood here in the middle. It's a very, very big forest, several 100 miles across. You've got the Rotting Peaks, a very old mountain chain. You've got the Blue Claws to the north, which lead kind of to the frozen northern reaches of the world. You've got Hook Peak, which is a larger frozen peak. Boy, I should update this map. I have a newer version. Anyway, and then you've got the Ashen Barrows over here. These are kind of the Ashen Barrows are kind of an accursed place where people get strange wasting diseases and the animals are strange. You've got the Mudfen here in the south, which is a muddy kind of basin along Icefog Lake. You've got like Blue Bottom over there, you know. So we got a fair number of environmental sources that we can play with. But first off, let me just kind of go through the monsters that get a mention. So, looking first kind of at the area right around Wormbone, out in the Gemwood, there are something called an Ice Claw that apparently only comes out in winter. That may not be its real name. That may be a kind of a colloquialism. I think it's only described as something with claws. I thought, you know, in my initial kind of musings of this, no one's seen one yet, 'cause I haven't statted it up, that this is actually probably, I like the idea of some sort of like cat or like cougar that is somehow frosty and cold. So it's not a bear. I don't want it to be a bear. Bears are already kind of tied intrinsically to cold. Even though they tend to hibernate cold, but still, I feel like it might be interesting to have some sort of prowling cat that works in the cult. Yeah, Sabretooth's kind of interesting. That might be a direction to go. So there's that. That is a creature that gets mentioned. I don't know what it is yet, but that one does have a mention. Lake Blue Bottom, there is something glowing at the bottom of it that pulses, and that might be a monster, but it's not really defined. Whether or not there's some kind of glowing sea serpent or something down there, maybe. The Mudfen is home to a bunch of kobolds, and it might be interesting if those kobolds were a little different than basic kobolds. That they're adapted to live in muddy environments, so maybe they've got different feet. Maybe they've got different kind of acclimations. So there might be an alternate kobold there. Glowing eels might work, yeah, at the bottom of Lake Blue Bottom, yeah. Quite possible. Yeah, it could be interesting if it was more than just one thing. If it wasn't just one big glowing creature. I don't need a Loch Ness, necessarily. In that I don't need a Nessie. So, there is a ruin in the Gemwood called Summerglen. It's an elven ruin where, after the events of Eventide, the elves tried to do some experiments to try and figure out what had happened and what was going on. And they summoned some things that then couldn't go home. And it caused catastrophic ruin, and these ruins are now filled with fiends of some sort. And I'll circle back to those because I think there's some interesting concepts floating around in there. One of the bigger things in the setting is, so if you look at there are no Fae. So if you look in the Blue Claw Mountains up in the north, there's a small dock called Rhyme Shield. And below it is Anvil Stump. Anvil Stump is a camp of dwarves who are here to explore the ruins of Rhyme Shield. Rhyme Shield was overrun by something in their books only described as ice serpents. Don't know what that is. Not dragons. I know it's not dragons, but it's something weird and something real bad and something the dwarves don't want to wake up again. So there is that. There is also a strange cult operating out of the Free Farms that worships something called the White Mammoth. Not sure if that's actually a monster or just a fiend or something. And then you get kind of some specific dangers that the PCs have encountered. The Shadow Stalkers and the Gaunt. So those last two are creatures that I would put in the category of setting-specific monsters. You could put them elsewhere, but they're tied to this setting for some specific reason. So, as far as the Ice Serpents, Lenorm, maybe, but Lenorms tend to be too powerful for what I think these things could be. I viewed them more as medium or large size kind of ice snakes. I don't know why I had that in my head, but I like the art piece of a dwarf fighting off a giant snake made out of ice. I don't know why. That seems cool to me. So let's start here and say, those are some of the things that we've already set out. I don't need much work on those. Some of those are things I already have plans for, or things that I'm moving on. But I think one thing that I could use is more kind of unique critters to various parts of the setting. So let's start with the Gemwood. So we got the Gemwood here, right? Big forest, just north, old forest, filled with long forgotten memories. I think that basically I should have my own monsters that live in here. Now we got the Ice Claw, so let's start with that. The Ice Claw, I'm thinking of it as some sort of cat. Maybe one that sleeps during the summer and hunts in winter. White pelt, blue claws, ranking. Thank you. Yes, I have had a lot going on. The last few weeks have been very, very busy, and it only gets busier from here. I'll be able to say more on that soon. I'm really swamped. Right? So we got Ice Claws. I also think that this forest just needs its own kind of special denizen. So what do we know about it? Okay, here's the things we know about it. The forest is very old. There are not going to be any fae or any creatures like that, right? No sentient plants, and no fae. That's not a thing that's in this setting. So I'm really looking for animals, bugs. We can do other sorts of things that are, spirits and things like that, but not fae and not kind of things that are tied to fae magic, in some way. So treants, for example, are out, as are all. So I wouldn't want to make like, oh, there's mischievous tree spirits. Nope, too fae-like. Those don't exist. Mushroom people? I like mushroom people. That is kind of leshy, though. And to be honest, mushrooms don't really do well in super cold. Not really their jam. Not that they don't exist. They're just not as prevalent. Here's something I'm thinking about. Okay, so we got gemwoods. What if there's some rare sort of thing that feasts on gemwood trees? It's like a pest. It's some sort of, I don't know, maybe a beetle or something. Should have something like that. Like this would be the thing that the logging companies despise and they kill on sight. Maybe there is even a bounty on them. Like, that these things have to be killed. They can't be allowed to propagate because they eat the gemwood trees. Now remember, the gemwood trees are a special type of tree whose roots absorb various minerals that then slowly concentrate under pressure inside the tree trunk and form gemstones. I know that's not how it really works. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it does. So it happens here. So the question is, what would eat those? What would cause a problem on those? Yeah, Tiger, that's kind of what we're thinking, is some sort of, like, not just a snow leopard, right? Like, it's not just an ordinary cat. It has to be a fantastical cat in some way, shape, or form. Something that's weird and different, right? Like, I think there's certainly room in any setting to be like, yep, here's a animal from our world, and here are just the stats for it, and it exists in that world. Well, it's good to have common touchstone. For this, I'm thinking of something different. Gem raccoons. I mean, I like it. It does make me think. Yeah, all right, so I'm going to put a pin in that because I'm not sure I want the raccoons to be the thing. But I do want to do something with raccoons. I think having some sort of weird sort of raccoon in this world might be fun. Like flying raccoons or something. They're just... Well, why? I don't know, but it's bad. It's not something you want. They really get in your trash. Like a cross between a flying squirrel and a raccoon. Okay, before we get drawn off in too many different directions here, let's focus on thing that menaces Gemwood Tree. The moth idea is very. What if? Okay, hold on. I got an idea. So, okay, all right. Gemwood moth. I'm gonna write this down. Let me put it down here. So, here's what it is. It is a type of moth that in its caterpillar stage, it eats gemwood trees. It eats the bark. It eats the leaves. It consumes the trees. When it goes through its metamorphosis and turns into a moth, it's actually very beautiful. So the moth is colored by the wood that it eats. So they could be these brilliant ruby moths or brilliant sapphire moths or whatever. So the gemwood lumber companies want them all exterminated. They don't want them eating the gemwood trees at all, because if there's enough of them, they can cause the tree to become sickly and die. They mostly just eat the leaves. But yeah, opalescent. That's a good word. Yeah. Now let me take a peek here. So that's my thought. My thought is they're a pest. They're relatively harmless. Maybe the moths are big enough to be a threat, like a really minor threat, like level -1. They can bite you, or maybe they've got wing dust that can cause confusion or something, right? You know, they're just a pest. Not sure what's going on. Ognar thing to visit. So, okay. Great idea. I like how this came together. Definitely like it. Okay. Yes. Okay. So we've got a moth that feeds on gemwood trees. Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I do like that there may be seasonal. Like at the end of summer is maybe at the beginning of summer, all of their eggs hatch and they feed, so that in the very beginning of summer they send out huge crews of people to kill the caterpillar before they can feast on all the gemwood trees. Yeah. Great. Perfect. 10 out of 10, no notes. That's fantastic. Very low level danger. Okay. So, ice trolls are actually already in the setting. They're already a monster. I've got ice trolls in there. Let me talk we circle back around to the idea of some sort of interesting raccoon. I like the idea that the gemwood has some sort of mischievous, like, I don't necessarily, oh, sure, yeah, no, I follow you, Tiger. I mean, there's definitely some stuff there. I like the idea that the ice claws, hibernate up in the mountains during the summer, where it's cold. They don't like the heat. And then in winter they come down. That's when they come down out of to hunt and to feed. So okay. Moths hatch at the end of fall. I like that, or at the end of summer. So yeah, they tend to mark the changing of the season. The moths do. All right, so let me go back. Let me hop back to the raccoon critter now. Talk about that a little. So, boy, I want to draw the line between doing something too kind of cutesy, but also maybe have something that's kind of unique and different and frankly alluring. Something that, I mean, moths are cool, but like having the forest has kind of mischievous raccoons that are just a hair too smart, right? And maybe they can glide. Maybe they're gliding raccoons. I don't know. Kind of like the idea of getting someone to illustrate a gliding raccoon. Am I just creating a tanuki? Is that what I'm doing? I mean, minus the, the way that tanukis do things. Might be. I don't know. Maybe I'll just put a pin in this. Okay. So let me move on. I'll give that some thought. I don't know. I'm not 100% certain. So, now I've also got, let's see, out to the east, right? East and west of Gemwood, there are some pretty big prairie areas. These are kind of larger, not heavily forested or anything. They're just kind of grasslands. To the east, that's where all the herders are. That's where, based out of Red Thistle and ranging out toward the Ashen Barrows, but stopping well short of them, are where, most of the herd animals and stuff are kept, whereas the areas around Wormbone, the plains to the south of Wormbone, are all farmland. And then to the east, you got the free farms, which is more farmland, but it is also just kind of wild prairie land. So I've got enough prairie land that there is a possibility for maybe some prairie type predators. Currently I've been playing around with doing things like ankhegs and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I know, but yes, I know tanuki are dogs, but I think there's some similarities in how they get depicted sometimes. But anyway, I digress. So I could do some prairie predators, maybe some bugs or insects or something, burrowing things. I don't know. We got ankhegs. Ankhegs kind of fill the role. It does make me wonder if there's some sort of larger threat. You get up to bullets and the larger burrowing creatures. I mean, a large prairie dog. There is, we do have a cult worshiping the white mammoth. I don't know what that is. I think that might just be somebody doing, worshiping an evil deity that manifests as a white. I think that might not be a monster at all. So I don't know. Some sort of burrowing creature. I feel like that's always fun in prairies. Maybe it's just me watching Tremors too much, right? But then again, ankhegs do this, right? I mean, I think... A prairie dog that swallows people whole. I don't know. I've seen a lot of prairie dogs. They're more adorable than ferocious. Maybe. Dire elk. Sure. Okay, so I'll leave that alone, leave that alone. It's an elk that they just call a mammoth. Yeah, I mean, you've never seen a mammoth before. How would you know? It acts the giant prairie dog acts cute, and it also stays very far away, so you think it's not that big. Badgers. All right, now kangaroos just are not going to make the cut. I've seen the skeletons of the big kind of prehistoric megafauna versions of kangaroos. They are terrifying. So terrifying that you wouldn't have herders out there. That's the other thing, right? If there's going to be any sort of critter out there, it needs to be something that isn't so disruptive, isn't so dangerous that the herders who are out there wouldn't run away from it, right? Or be like, yeah, no, we're not doing this here. So, like, you could do swarms of different kinds of insects and things like that. Things that are just a nuisance, and less of a common high-level threat. But yeah. Gemwood flying squirrels, that's interesting. Maybe. I don't know how many things I want screwing around with gemwood trees. I do like the gemwood moth a lot right now. And whether or not I do some sort of mammal that can fly, maybe. Maybe. I'm kicking that around. I need to let that germinate a little. So, alright. I don't know that I'm going to get anywhere with the prairie thing right now. Nothing's really singing to me. Let's move on. What time is it? 7:33. Okay, let's move on to Wormbone itself. So that's interesting. Chupacabra-like thing. Something that feeds off livestock. Maybe. Some sort of sneaky, creepy predator. Like, the thing I think that I like most about the Chupacabra is that it is, it's just this weird, creepy little thing that drains the blood from animals, right? You know, it just loves feasting on animal blood. You know, having a creature that, you know, steals the bones from cows, right? I don't know. Yeah, it's some sort of cryptid, but I'm leery. It is that space is owned so solidly by the Chupacabra in terms of its conceptual space, right? You'd have to do something pretty different, like it just eats eyes, like it's some sort of insect that devours the eyes of cattle. You know, some sort of eye cruncher. Ew. I'm going down some rather gross routes, like it like will. I'm thinking about, like, it's some sort of gross insect whose reproductive cycle involves it laying its eggs inside the eye of your livestock, and then its young eats its way in and eventually splits open from inside the thing's skull, right? Like, that's what I'm thinking. That's the direction I went, which is just like, yeah, farmers don't like that. When they see a cow with a red glowing eye, they know that they have to put it down immediately. That, yeah. Tiger, I like what you're thinking of there. I'm going to put down Summer Glen, because that's the name of the place. Summer Glen. I also appreciate, Tiger, how you spelled it like the band, the Hellwood Beatles. So now all of them have like the face of Rango. Not Rango, Ringo. Or that's what I'm thinking now. There might be something there. No, Alara, I know that there are legit insects that do that. That's why I'm thinking about it. Catfolk with bowl cuts. I don't like where any of this is going. Now it's just gone ridiculousness. Okay, so alright. I don't know about the bug thing with the livestock, but there's something interesting there. I don't know. It might be too grim. Might be too gross. Like the Summer Glen Hellwood Beetles. I'm trying to think of one of the things I'm trying to think about is for Wormbone. I would like Wormbone as a town to have one or two of its own weird little pests. Perhaps some sort of sewer monster that's specific to the town, and maybe some sort of general pest that people encounter in the town itself. So, you know, you got rats and other bugs and stuff like that. I am going to have to replace, undoubtedly, the sewer beast in part 2 of the adventure, which is currently an Adayug. And that's fair. I did ask all of you for ideas. True. So, that does bring me around to the gaunts and stuff. I mean, maybe this is a good time to talk about them. So, I don't consider the gaunts to be a specific pest to Wormbone. That's just where the players are encountering them. But the gaunts are very specifically a threat that I will be expanding upon. Because the basic gaunt is not the only one. Sorry, I'm just putting in a couple notes here real quick. Okay. Grubs. Maybe. So, okay. Get down to kind of understanding Wormbone. Wormbone is a city on top of a city on top of a city. Right? You've got the ruins of Ilsanvenir. That is an old elven city. It goes deep beneath the ground. It's big. It's vast. It falls into ruin. It gets replaced by a smaller town that kind of grows up in its ruins called Elfend. Elfend grows. A bunch of that burns down, gets built over, and that becomes the town of Wormbone. So, at its heart, Wormbone is kind of built on an elven ruin. So what if, by its very nature of who the elves are, that there's something there, that there's something creepy there? Like, I mean, first of all, there could be elven undead, and that's something I'm going to put down just in general. A special kind of elven undead. So, either because of old elven rights or because of what happened during Eventide, there are elven undead. Rare. This should be a rare and dangerous threat. Now, I've seen a couple mentions now of something that eats on bones or something like that, right? We got worm bone, right? So what if, like, and it's not really, people assume it's because of the dragons, but it's not. It's because they're living on a giant catacomb, right? They are atop the ruins of an elven city. Like some sort of bone weevil. Just a common threat. And there's ordinary ones that are problems as a swarm. So you do this, you do a swarm and a giant variety. Both are relatively rare, but you do find little bone weevils now and again. They feast on bones. I shall call them all Moopsie. I'm gonna write down Moopsie. I like Moopsie. So, okay. I like that. I like that a lot. I might play into the Banshee stuff. Because obviously there's some good connections there. But I think I want something that's a little bit more rank and file and not so high level, because the Banshee's pretty high level now. Yeah. Some kind of leathery frozen elf. I don't know what it is. Something like that. Okay. One other thing I'm thinking about as well, and I'll close on this idea. I like that. I don't know where some of these are going. Some of these are just idea bubbles right now, and that's good, because idea bubbles get me somewhere down the road at some point. Well, I mean, that depends, right? I kind of look at this isn't specifically for an adventure. The question was, what level ranges am I looking for? And it's not specifically for an adventure. It's just for the region. So I don't want anything super high level, because if there was if there's a bunch of level 20 monsters roaming around the region, that would cause real problems. Whereas, there's a very rare level 12 thing that lives somewhere nearby that people don't mess with, right? That's more doable. So, could there be a slumbering level 18 terror somewhere in the mountains? Sure, but it's sleeping. Fine. We're fine, as long as it doesn't wake up. There's one other thing that I'm playing around with. This is another setting-specific monster. And it may have something to do with Summer Glen. In one of my seminars quite some time ago, we talked about kind of the cycle of souls and how they travel through the planes and how they go on a journey that starts kind of at the outer planes, the home of the gods, the repository of all lived experiences, and from there a mote of pure being is created, and the will to exist is created, and it is infused with life and that vital spark in the kind of the primal plane, and then it arrives at the arcane plane, and it is infused with matter and form, and it is born into the material plane, the real world. And it is there for a time, and once it is done with its time, there is snuffed out by the opposite of vitality. Its vitality is siphoned away to restore the balance, and it's that mote of soul, that mote of consciousness returns to the outer planes, where its experiences are purged from it, and then it is reincarnated and continues the cycle all and all over again, and the outer planes learn all of this vast knowledge. That's not working as well as it used to. It started to break down. Something wrong with that cycle, and sometimes souls can't leave. Just like sometimes players can't be brought back. Resurrection magic isn't guaranteed. sometimes souls can't leave either. So there is this concept that I'm playing around with. I'm just gonna call it lost souls for now. And I think these come in a number of varieties based kind of on what they were destined for in the afterlife. So, a peaceful lost soul is not much of a danger at all. More of a kind of nuisance at most. But a, you know, wrathful or corrupted lost soul is a real danger. I think that is the way I'm gonna go with that. Is that I think that there are these kind of lost souls, and they can be encountered, right? It's a thing that I'm going to slowly start introducing. They're not super common. They're not a thing everybody runs into all the time. They're a thing that shows up every once in a while. And sorry, I was kind of going off on a tear there, so I got a little behind on chat. Yeah, Vampire's a little overdone. Shadow and shadow creatures of some kind, yeah, those are definitely on my list. There's going to be more varietals of Gaunts and more shadow creatures that work with the Gaunts. That's kind of a known to me. That doesn't mean that I won't, you know, chat with all of you about them, but right now that's pretty known. It's a known quantity. Trapped Elven Spirits, sure. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, will-o-wisps. Take... Boy, I'm running out of time. Will-o-wisps aren't fey, are they? No, they're like aberrations, right? Yeah. So they can still exist. That's interesting. I don't know that I necessarily want them to be more like will-o-wisp. I think I want them to be more like floating ghosts. Like they're oftentimes mistaken for ghosts. Maybe they're only half. Maybe they're just like floating torso. Floating heads? They could just be heads. Yeah. There's definitely something here. Yeah. I think that's going to be the way to go. All right. Well, looking at the time, I am just about out of time here, folks. I think that is going to be where I have to call it here today. This was really productive. I think I got at least 3 or 4 things out of here that are slam dunks, that are great ideas. So there we go, folks. That is today's brainstorm. That is today's chat here. I want to thank you all for hanging out. I should be able to keep my regular streaming schedule, I think. There may be some disruptions coming up. I've got some big changes going on. So I will keep you all informed as that comes together. Folks, I want to thank you for hanging out with me here tonight. Thank you for your support of the Eventide project. It's always good to see all of you. Always good to chat. And I'm looking forward to sharing more and more of this campaign with all of you. I am hoping to get the Penumbrist out to you in the next few weeks. I just need to wrap up a few things on it and get it through layout. But I'll have more news on that probably by next week. All right, folks. Take care. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. And we will see you next time.